So today we're going to talk about assumptions, limitations, and delimitations for your research proposal. These can show up in chapters 1 or sometimes in chapter 3. Either can be appropriate. You and your doctoral committee chair can decide on the best place for them. And then sometimes the limitations show up again in chapter 5 once the study has actually been completed, because they may be different than what you had anticipated. So first of all, what is an assumption? So these are things that the researcher cannot prove, but is considering true or accepting at face value. So this can be things that you say, okay, I'm going to take these for granted, but you want to state those as assumptions in your study so that you aren't having the readers wonder if you really understand what you are considering. So let's look at some examples, and that will help clarify these. So if you think about the assumptions as sort of the boundaries that you're setting around your study, let's say that you are doing a study about learning outcomes, and that you're going to say that because these students are all taking the same kinds of courses, that they will be having the same learning outcomes no matter the type of course delivery. So let's say you have a hybrid class and an online class. This might be an assumption you would make, particularly if there are other things that are considered the same, such as the faculty person is the same, or that they do have the objectives and all of the learning activities lead to the same outcomes. Another example might be that you would say that there are some relationships that you would assume would happen. In this case, we're saying that there are relationships with immediate supervisors, and that people would be able to tell you about those relationships that they would have with their supervisors. One of the most common assumptions is that people will answer honestly when they answer your questions or complete a survey. And that one is a good one to include in most instances. So let's move on to limitations and delimitations and clarify the distinction between the two. So a limitation is a variable or a weakness that you know that you have in your study and that you are not controlling for it. Lots of times that results from the lack of generalizability of the results for your study. You have set a certain population or the sample from your population, the number of participants or subjects that you'll be including. All of these things can have a limited generalizability to either other disciplines, or because of the sample size, maybe they aren't able to be generalized to the general group of even within your own discipline. And then you just want to make sure that you're clarifying that for the reader. On the other hand, delimitations are things that you are limiting. So those are boundaries that you are setting and things that you say you are not going to deal with. So you will say things like, this will not address the perceptions of people in a for-profit organization. So that you're saying, this is what we're including in this study, and we are delimiting or choosing not to include these other types of organizations or populations or subjects. In limitations, there are a number of different types of limitations that you can consider, and lots of these relate to the type of research design you are using. If you're using a convenient sample, lots of times that randomization of a sample is the strongest, so you might talk about the fact that it's a convenient sample, and that would be a limitation, or the actual type of discipline you're in, and then it might not be able to be generalized to other disciplines. The research design itself, almost every one of the different types of research design has a limitation, and so you want to go to your textbooks and identify what that limitation might be. So if you're doing a quasi-experimental study, then one of the three major things for a complete experimental is not being included, and so you would want to say that which one of those three things is not included in the study. So that would be a methodological limitation. If we think about the instruments, maybe you are considering an online interview through emails because you want to reach a large number of participants, but you would know that you aren't able to ask clarifying or probing questions then. So that would be a definite limitation of the instrument or tool that you are using. And then the context. There again, it's similar to the assumptions in that you would not be able to generalize to other disciplines or types of organizations. And then let's talk about delimitations. You are saying that you are including certain individuals or certain groups or certain areas, but then what are you excluding? And so in some instances, maybe you will have a demographic that you're only including females, or that you are talking about a certain ethnicity that you're including, and it wouldn't involve then individuals of other ethnicities. So we want to make sure that we have the research proposal. Chapter 1 is where we're going to put these limitations, delimitations, and assumptions for right now. So you want to add those to Chapter 1, continuing editing and revising, and then make sure that you talk to your doctoral committee chair if you haven't already done so, with a focus on the purpose statement, problem statement, and the research questions. And then for your assignment, making sure that you add in your operational definitions or revising those if you've worked on them before, and then include these assumptions, limitations, and delimitations. And don't be afraid to go to your text and understand what they are described there as well. So I look forward to seeing Chapter 1. Keep on writing. Thanks. Bye.